Shamote. Do you even shamote? You better shamote. You better bust out your Bible. Flip it over here to the Exodus, which is Hebrew for run away, y'all. And go to number 13, which is an unlucky number. Does anybody know why it's an unlucky number? Or Friday the 13th? Has to do with the Knights Templar, which is not what this is about at all. But yeah, that's where all that comes from. So you could let your fingers do some walking on the Google machine and figure all that out. But we are in Shamot, Exodus 13. And just last week, we talked about Pesach, the Passover. And a little bit about this ye old feast of the unleavened bread, which is a thing that we will be doing here. I am already in the process of securing our Passover lamb. And yeah, it's to be a year-old male of the sheep or the goats, right? And you slaughter it and you put its blood on your doorposts and your lintel, and then you eat the thing with your loins girded and your staff in hand, ready to go, GTFO and kick some A, right? It's like a warrior's meal. Like we're about to move. Get some food in your belly so we can move out. So, and I had a brother ask me recently, good conversation about Passover, like, what's the deal with the lamb? And I said, so here's the thing, right? The lamb it's an obvious, Passover is an obvious foretelling of the Messiah, right? We are covered by the blood of Yeshua, HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ, right? His atoning sacrifice is the reason you and I will not be destroyed on Judgment Day, right? When the Father looks at us and goes, you suck, next, right? Yeshua's like, yo, Pops, he's mine. This guy's mine. It's like, all right, you kids go play. All right, go play. Paraphrasing here, right? Judgment is going to be a very scary thing. Not something I'm looking forward to, even though I'm covered by the blood of the Messiah. But that's the thing. We are covered by the blood of the Messiah. You may have heard Yeshua referred to as the Lamb, right? There's lots of worship songs, behold the Lamb is slain and yada yada yada, right? Yeshua is the Passover Lamb. And so when we do Passover, just as when we partake of the bread and the wine, do this in remembrance of me, right? Well, that was Passover meal, number one. And number two, the Jews have been blessing the Jews, the Hebrews, because there is a difference. The Hebrews have been blessing the bread and the wine, the hamotzi, in thanks to Yahweh, to Father God, for 4,000 years, uninterrupted, right? Thank you, Father, for this bread and this wine. Let's give thanks to God for bread who brings forth bread out of the earth, or something like that, right? That's the hamotzi. Well, when Yeshua comes along and says, do this in remembrance of me, the bread is my body, the wine is my blood, right? It clicks. It's a fulfillment of. And so it's the same thing with Passover, that when I take this lamb and I slaughter this lamb, number one, I'm told in here to do this for all generations. Number two, read that. What a cheap facsimile of the blood of Yeshua. It's a reminder. It's a reminder that Yeshua fulfilled this Torah, that we are saved by his blood, that it's not just, in my estimation, good enough to do this thing with this lamb. I'm gonna do it because the Bible tells me to do it. Do this for all your generations forever. It's still forever, y'all. We're gonna do it. But Yeshua is the atoning sacrifice, right? He fulfilled the Torah. And some would say, well, because of that, you don't have to do that lamb thing anymore. It says do it forever. So when I do it, it'll be the same as when I eat the blood or when I eat the bread and the wine. It's a cheap facsimile of. But even the Father can use that cheap facsimile of that little piece of bread. Think about where your mind and your heart goes when you partake of that, when you do that. It's such a powerful reminder of, to the point where the Catholics have a doctrine that it literally becomes the body and the blood when you partake of it. We're not going to go there. But suffice it to say, when I do this thing with this lamb, it'll be because the Father told me to do it. And as a reminder that all of our earthly sacrifices will never stack up to the sacrifice of the Son of the Most High, Yeshua HaMashiach, the manifestation of the Creator of the universe here on earth to lead us and guide us and show us how to do this thing we call life. So, that's where we left off last week. We are back in Shemot 13. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, set apart to me all the firstborn, the one opening the womb among the children of Israel, among man and among beast, it is mine. Now, that is kind of an interesting passage if you don't have any framework or context there. Set apart to me all the firstborn. They are mine, says Yahweh. Okay. This does not mean we go sacrifice our firstborn. Set apart. Set apart. Holy. The word holy. The Romanization of Kadesh. Kadesh means set apart. And so you get holy or sanctified. Means set apart. So you will keep my firstborn holy. Your firstborn are holy, and they are to be dedicated to me. Why? It's a reminder, it's a remembrance of. Remember the last plague? Yeah, all the firstborn. So now he's saying, this is all in context here. Okay, these people they're just coming out of Mitzrayim, out of Egypt. Hold on, we must adjust. All right. There we go. So these people are just coming out of Mitzrayim. They're just coming out of Egypt. This is like just happened, the death of the firstborn. So now Yahweh's saying, look, you will consecrate your firstborn to me. They are Kadesh, they are holy, they are set apart. You will keep them set apart for me. Doesn't mean we go slaughter them. That's not what this is talking about, okay? Set apart to me all your firstborn. Okay. And Moshe said to the people, remember this day in which you went out of Mitzrayim, out of the house of slavery. For by the strength of the hand of Yahweh brought you out of this place, and whatever is leavened shall not be eaten. Now remember, when they hit the road pretty quick, and they had not leavened their bread yet, so their bread didn't rise. It was flat bread, matzah, pita, something like that, okay? Naan bread? No, I think naan has yeast in it, but that stuff is yummy. Sister Kate makes some banging naan bread, by the way, SK. If you're out there, shalom, sister, and your naan bread is freaking awesome. All right. Sorry, I had to get distracted by food. I'm also fasting today, so I probably shouldn't be thinking about naan bread. There it is. Now it's in my head. Dang it, SK. Why? Why did you do this to me? Unleavened bread. So here's the other thing, right? We celebrate the Feast of Passover. It's like a long, week-long thing. But it's actually the festival of unleavened bread. The Passover is one day. It's a 24-hour period that starts all of this. And then we have this unleavened bread stuff that we're doing. So when they left Egypt, Mitzrayim, they left in a hurry, and their bread hadn't risen yet. And the Father was like, no big deal. And so to remember as a remembrance of all these things I did to get you out of bondage, to get you out of slavery. You will do this in remembrance. Are we seeing the big circle here? It's why I wish more churches studied the Old Testament, because at least for me, we were dang near indoctrinated in the New Testament. Like, it was slammed into our brain, but we got very little Old Testament. And so it's like, it cheapens the New Testament to not understand the context of it from the Old Testament. Why is this important? Don't just tell me it's important. I need to know why it's important. So, unleavened bread. Today you are going out in the new moon, Abib, or Aviv. And it shall be, when Yahweh brings you into the land of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, all of that land, which he swore to your fathers to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, that you shall keep this service in the new moon. When you go back to the land of Canaan, the land that was set apart for you, right? That's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Canaan, right? The only reason they left Canaan was because of the famine. They ended up in Egypt, where Joseph was. We covered all this in Genesis. They get there. The food's good. Hey, at least there is food. Good job, Joseph. We didn't all starve to death. And then they fall into bondage, right? And approximately 430 years goes by. Now, some people believe that 430 years is the total number of years that the Israelites, including Joseph, were in Mitzrayim and Goshen, which is like the neighborhood outside of Egypt, where they're like, put all those Hebrews over there. They can go live over there. And in fact, there's a lot of towns called Goshen in areas where there's a high Jewish population in the United States. I'm looking at you, Goshen, New York. But anyway, right? But some people think that Moses, like, by the time of Moses, there was only 130 years. And then they come out of slavery. But that's a whole nother story for a whole nother time. But he's saying, yo, remember this. And we're going back to Canaan, this land that I set apart for you in the first place. So, 7 days you eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day is a festival to Yahweh. Unleavened bread is to be eaten in the 7 days, and whatever is leavened is not to be seen with you, and leaven is not to be seen with you and within all your border. So what we do is we get the leaven out. You get the leaven out, and it's a tradition of man. So just, we'll be open and honest with that. It's a tradition of man that you go burn that stuff. So within your borders is where it gets tricky, because as a prepper, man, I've got tons of yeast, lots of it. Self-rising flour, baking powder, baking soda, right? All that stuff. We store it in totes, and it's not in the house. And we don't eat it during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. I don't know if I should burn it or not. I'll have to consult with the Most High on that and let him lead me via the Spirit. But that's what we do with it, is we get it out of the house. And you shall inform your son in that day, saying, it is because of what Yahweh did for me when I came up out of Mitzrayim. This is why we do this, in remembrance of. And it shall be as a sign to you on your hand and as a reminder between your eyes that the Torah, the law of Yahweh, is to be in your mouth. For with a strong hand Yahweh has brought you out of Mitzrayim. So we've talked about this quite a bit. Okay, we're in Exodus 13. The 10 Commandments, right, where Charlton Heston mountain climbs up the side of Everest, and then Yah comes down and hands him 2 stone tablets, or something like that, paraphrasing. The 10 Commandments is Exodus 20. We're not even there yet. And yet we have another reference to the Torah, the law of the Most High. Now, it has not been codified, written on stone yet. And so it is my thesis, and there's tons of supporting evidence here, that this law was an oral tradition that when the Most High, when the creator of the universe, Father God, walked in the garden with Adam, when they talked at the end of each day, what do you think they were talking about? I bet you in large part it was this, the Torah. This is how you conduct yourself. This is how you live your life. And just to clarify, everybody, The Torah does not save. Salvation is only through the atoning sacrifice of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ. Believe on him and repent and you will be saved, right? John tells us that in the New Testament. Amen. That's foundational to our belief structure, all of us. What the Torah does is paint the guidelines, the boundaries on the playing field of life. And when you play within the boundaries, you are blessed. When you play outside of the boundaries, you are not blessed. You could even be the opposite of blessed, which is cursed, depending on how much playing outside of the boundaries you do. But the Torah, at least for me, I think of it almost like a football field. I can't go too far that way or too far that way, and I need to be going this way, and there's my goal at the end of the field. And I'm trying to, every day, move the ball down the field a little bit more until I get to the end, where I can score a touchdown, and the Father God comes over the announcement, the PA speaker, and goes, "Well done, good and faithful servant, number 72, Morris, right tackle." Right? Huge paraphrase here. But that's what the Torah does, is it establishes guidelines for us as to how to conduct ourselves. And as a good friend of mine, we were just talking the other day about this. What does keeping the Torah look like? Just paraphrasing here. Most Christians are already doing it. Where they're falling short is Leviticus 11. They don't eat clean, but Leviticus 11 is eat clean. Leviticus 23, they don't keep the feasts, even though the feasts say do this for all your generations, and we're still here, which means we still have generations. They don't wear the tzitzit, which is Numbers 15. It says do this for all of your generations, so we do. And we got the feast. Oh, and the Sabbath. Okay, that's Exodus 20 verses 8, 9, 10, 11, somewhere in there. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. Kadesh, set apart. Remember the Sabbath day. It's what the world calls Saturday, y'all. It's not Sunday. And it doesn't mean you can't go to Sunday church, because forsake not the gathering together. You can still go to Sunday church-ish if your heart and mind are there. But Saturday is the Sabbath, and there will be no work done therein on Saturday. And if you do work on Saturday, you'll be cut off from the children of Israel, from the nation of Israel. Does that mean you're going to die? Maybe. Maybe a spiritual death. Good thing we got Yeshua. But I can tell you this, we are unequivocally blessed when we do our best to follow the Torah. So, and then you can do the Deuteronomy 6:4 Shema, morning and night, like it says. You know, Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh is our God, Yahweh is one. And the children of Israel shall love the Lord their God with all their heart, with all their soul, with all their might. Did you ever hear Yeshua say something like that? All your heart, all your soul, and all your might, and love your neighbor as yourself. And we're even taught that, well, see, he added that. That's actually still Old Testament. He didn't add that. He just taught that. On this hangs all the law, that you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. That's the Yeshua's teachings in a nutshell. That is also the Old Testament Tanakh, the 5 books, the Pentateuch, in a nutshell, the law in a nutshell. So Yeshua didn't add that. He preached that. So huge tangent here, huge tangent. But the feasts, we do the feasts as part of keeping the Old Testament law. And you're not damned for all eternity if you don't, says me, but you don't get the blessings that come from it either, says me. Open to debate or have a comfortable conversation with anybody about that pretty much at any time. Moving on. Man, done a lot of talking and not enough reading. I apologize. The Torah of the Lord is what we're talking about here. Right? Because right here in 10 it says, and you shall guard this law at its appointed time from year to year. Guard it. Do it. Keep it. Don't let other people say you don't need to do that. You shall guard it. And it shall be, when Yahweh brings you into the land of the Canaanites, as he swore to you and your fathers, and gives it to you, that you shall give over to Yahweh every one opening the womb, and every firstborn that comes from your livestock, the males belong to Yahweh. Dedicate them unto the Lord. But every firstborn of a donkey you are to ransom with a lamb. Donkeys, give me a lamb instead of a donkey, okay? And if you do not ransom it, then you shall break its neck. And every firstborn of man among your sons are to ransom. And it shall be, when your son asks you in time to come, saying, what is this? Why are you doing this, Dad? What are we doing? What do you mean ransom me? What's up with this? You shall say, by the strength of the hand of Yahweh, we were brought out of Mitzrayim, out of the house of bondage. This is why we do this. Do this in remembrance of. Because remember, we're told repeatedly earlier in this book, in this Shemot, this Exodus, that the reason Yah is doing this is to build a testimony amongst his people, amongst the Israelites. I did this for you. Do you see how powerful I am? Do this in remembrance of me. Do this in remembrance of me. Do this in remembrance of me. I brought you out of sin and death. Do this in remembrance of me. Is this ringing a bell? Does it make sense? The fulfillment of. Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to get intense, but to me it's just incredible. It's the parallels here, they're not accidental, they're not coincidental. Yeshua is the fulfillment of all this Old Testament. He is this. And it's a damn shame that we're not taught this in Sunday church. Moving on. And it came to be, when Pharaoh was too hardened to let us go, that Yahweh killed every firstborn in the land of Mitzrayim, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of beast. Therefore I am slaughtering to Yahweh every male that opens the womb, and every firstborn of my sons I ransom. This is why I'm doing this, to remind us of just how powerful Yahweh is. And it shall be as a sign on your hand and as frontlets between your eyes, for by the strength of the hand of Yahweh brought us out of Mitzrayim. That's Deuteronomy 6:5, 6:6, 6:7, somewhere in there. And it shall be a sign upon thine hand and as frontlets between thine eyes. Yeah, they nail that a few times. That's why on my ball caps underneath here, underneath the brim, I have the Shema written. And I actually robbed that idea from Pastor Joe. I heard him talking about it in a video a while ago. It's like, that's smart. That's smart. And you can just put a piece of cord around your wrist as a reminder. Why is that cord on your wrist? Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh is our God and Yahweh is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with everything you got, your heart, your soul, your might, with all of it. And love your neighbor as yourself, and on this hangs all the law, hangs all the Torah. So, yeah. Does that mean we don't do the law, don't do the Torah? Because, hey man, you can sum it up in those two things. Love the Lord your God with everything you got, and be nice to your neighbor. No. I can sum up this rifle right here real quick. Shoulder it, put your cheek against it, good cheek weld, line the sights up, flip the safety off, squeeze the trigger. Does that mean you can run it? No. They are not the same thing. Doing is what counts. Talking is not what counts. Doing is what counts. James admonishes us in the New Testament. Man, we are all over the place this morning. I'm sorry. This is where we're going. James admonishes us to not be just hearers of the word, but doers of the word. The word that they were talking about, by the way, is this word right here that we're reading. Because we also lack the context to understand at the time when the New Testament was written, which is basically 4 Gospels and a bunch of letters and then some prophecy from John, the scriptures that they refer to is the Old Testament. The New Testament was not codified into a book. They weren't scriptures. The scriptures that they refer to in the New Testament are the Old Testament. So when they say do this, understand the word. The word they're talking about is this Old Testament, the Torah, the Tanakh. the prophecy of the major and minor prophets. That's what they're talking about. They're not talking about, Acts chapter 2. What they're talking about is Exodus 20, Leviticus 11, Leviticus 23. That's what they're talking about. It's like me talking about referencing the video 6 videos from now that I haven't shot yet. Doesn't make sense. I can reference the ones that have come before, but it's really hard for me to reference the ones that I haven't thought of or done yet. So, man, we are all over the place. I apologize. Good thing it's 30 degrees out here. No big deal. All right. And it came to be when Pharaoh had let the people go, that Elohim did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, though that was nearer. For Elohim said, lest the people regret when they see fighting and return to Mitzrayim. So they avoided a conflict with the Philistines, okay? So instead, Elohim led the people around by the way of the wilderness to the Sea of Reeds. And the children of Israel went up in fives. They marched in a column of 5 wide, right? Went up in fives. From the land of Mitzrayim. And Moshe took the bones of Joseph with him, for he certainly made the children of Israel swear, saying, Elohim shall certainly visit you, and you shall bring my bones from here with you. Yeah, Joseph said that, right? They're fulfilling that commitment, that prophecy there. They're taking Joseph with them back to Canaan. Why? Because Canaan, dude, that's where the land that Abram bought for just 400 shekels of silver. Remember that? Okay. From the sons of Heth, right? Lois, tell me, what is the name of this place? We were just talking about it the other day. Yeah. In the cave in the field by Mamre. That place, right? That's the resting place. And that's where they want Joseph to go, to return there, okay? And they departed from Sukkot. Oh, you mean like right there? No, not right there. That'd be cool though, wouldn't it? Like, oh, they were right there. They were partying with us last September. They departed from Sukkot and camped in Etam, at the edge of the wilderness. And Yahweh went before them by day in a column of cloud to lead the way, and by night in a column of fire to give them light, so as to go by day and by night. The column of cloud did not cease by day, nor the column of fire by night before the people. Interesting turn of phrase here. The word here that's used as column is the word in Hebrew that would mean pillar, which the literal translation of is pillar, but the conversational translation of means to stand upright. So when we hear a column, it sounds okay. So there's this thing, walking across, and some people say, well, it could have been a hurricane, it could have been this, or a tornado, it could have. I would like to think it would have that Yah walked upright before them, and during the day he was robed in smoke, and at night he was robed in fire, and they could see him. He was like a pillar unto them. Let's go this way now, right? It's like, damn it, Bob, I said get your stuff squared away. Now, let's go. I don't know. I feel like Yahweh would be a really good drill sergeant. Anyway, I prefer to think that visually here, that he was walking with them upright like a pillar, robed in smoke and fire. He's the creator of all. Of course he could do it. I think that'd be cool. Hey man, nice clothes. What's that made out of? Fire! 14. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel that they turn and camp before Pi Hahiroth, between Migdal and the sea, opposite Baal Zephon, camp before it by the sea. For Pharaoh shall say to the children of Israel, say of the children of Israel, Pharaoh is going to look at you guys and go, they are entangled in the land, and the wilderness has closed them in. They're stuck. And I shall strengthen the heart of Pharaoh, and he shall pursue them, But I am to be esteemed through Pharaoh and over all his army, and the Mitzrites shall know that I am Yahweh. And they did so. And it was reported to the sovereign of Mitzrayim that the people had fled. So Pharaoh found out, the Hebrews are gone. And the heart of Pharaoh and his servants were turned against the people. They got pissed. And they said, why have we done this? Why have we let Israel go from serving us? Oh no, we lost all our servants. Because they just slaughtered all your firstborn, remember? So he made his chariot ready and took his people with him. There was probably a lot of vengeance on the mind of the Mitzrites at this point. I'd say they were going just as much, if not more, to exact revenge than they would be to go get their servants back. The shock and awe is starting to pass from the death of all the firstborns. They're sitting around. All the Hebrews are gone. They've been robbed by the Hebrews, right? Give us your gold and your silver. And they go. And now they're sitting in this desolation of all these plagues. Firstborn are dead, river full of blood, piles of rotting flogs, lice, flies, leprosy, or boils rather. All this stuff has just happened. Now the Hebrews are gone. And somebody comes and says, they're gone, but they're right over there, and they're trapped in the wilderness. What say you, sir? Slaughter them, right? Go kill them. Better yet, bring me my chariot. Let's go kill them. I imagine that's what's going on contextually in this situation. It's less about, hey, dude, we're going to need some more bricks. We should go get our people back. And more about, kill every last one of them. I've had enough. Plus the strategic advantage of taking all their flocks and herds. And if you can re-enslave some, take them, right? But vengeance is what I imagine is on the heart of Pharaoh. Not prudence. So, and he took 600 choice chariots and all the chariots of Mitzrayim with officers over all of them. And Yahweh strengthened the heart of Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitzrayim, and he pursued the children of Israel. But the children of Israel went out defiantly. And the Mitzrites pursued them, and all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh, and all his horsemen, and all his army, and overtook them, camping by the sea of Pi-hahiroth, before Baal-Zephon. Those are words, Hebrew words, the best words. They are tremendous, no doubt about it. And when Pharaoh drew near, the children of Israel lifted their eyes and saw the Mitzrites coming up after them, and they were greatly afraid. So the children of Israel cried out to Yahweh. Cried out to Yahweh. How shall we pray? Cry out to Yahweh. That's another thing to understand. The Lord's Supper, or not the Lord's Supper, the Lord's Prayer, is not an incantation. It is a way you pray. It is not the precise words that you have to pray or should pray. So understand that. If you want to pray them, that's cool. But it's not an incantation. It's not if you say all these words properly. This is not like magic, right? This is the creator of the universe hearing your voice, the resonancy of your soul. And he hears it. And he makes his face to shine upon you. He looks down and he goes, I see what you're doing down there, kid. You know what? You've been pretty good this day. I got you. Have some blessings. The comparison to the Father as the Father is brilliant. Because I get it, having kids. It's like, did you clean your room? Okay. Cool. Yeah, you can have some ice cream. Or, yeah, you clean your room, but I had to tell you 15 times to do it. No, you don't get any ice cream. Right? Obedience brings blessing. Cry out unto the Father. Let him hear your voice. And I think it's important that you use your mouth to do it. Right? That your heart leads your mouth, but that you speak prayer. Not that he can't hear your mind, hear your heart, right? We're told in the New Testament that he knows our heart. Actually, we're told throughout all the Testaments, he knows our heart. But I think it's really important that you speak aloud. And sometimes It's difficult. It's hard. Even if you just whisper. But make a noise unto the Lord, right? Just, it's important. I feel it's important to make sound that he hears you. There's reverberation there. The world was created with an utterance, right? And that tells us the power of words. So I think it's important that we cry out, and we literally cry out unto the Most High. And they said to Moshe, did you take us away to die in the wilderness because there are no burial sites in Mitzrayim? This is almost like a Seinfeld skit. You took us over here to die. What, there was no room left in Egypt for us to get killed, so you brought us out here into the wilderness? Got it. Thanks, bro. Is this not the word that we spoke to you in Mitzrayim, saying, leave us alone and let us serve the Mitzrites, for it would have been better for us to serve the Mitzrites than to die in the wilderness? Shut up, wussies. Wussies. I wonder, did they have polos back then? Were these polo-wearing beta males here? Not to be confused with polo-wearing alpha males, because if you wear a polo and you own that thing, rah, I dig it. There's lots of great instructors walking around in polos. But there's a lot, I'm talking about modern Christianity, polo-wearing beta males. Listen, brother. Listen, you should probably tone that down a little bit. You're probably gonna offend some people, and that's, you know, Jesus tells us that we should love our neighbor like we love ourselves. And do you want to offend yourself? Listen, brother. Yeah, shut up. No. Did you bring us out here into the wilderness to die? We could have just died in Egypt, brother. Shut up. You sit down, back of the line. I don't know why, John Ishii, but I think this is for you today. I don't know why. And I'm not saying you're a polo-wearing beta male. I feel like you're the total opposite of that. This just hit me. So, oh boy. For it would have been better for us to serve the Mitzrites than die in the wilderness. Shut up. And Moshe said to the people, do not be afraid. Stand still and see the deliverance of Yahweh, which he does for you today. For the Mitzrites, whom you see today, you are never, never to see again. This will be the last time you see these bad boys. Don't worry about it. Stand still and watch what the Father's going to do. Roger. Yahweh does fight for you, and you keep silent. That's a really, really powerful line right there. We could camp on that for the rest of this video. Yahweh does fight for you, and you keep silent. What praises should you be giving to the Father but aren't? And that street runs both ways. I'm surrounded by glorious creation. I have everything I need and most of what I want. I'm blessed with friends and family and tribe, community, revenue, business. Hundreds of emails a day, like-minded people, chickens, sheep, soon to be goats, my crazy dog over there. Like, I walk through life around here being thankful, looking around and going, don't deserve that, thank you. Don't deserve that, thank you. Every now and then I get a little caught up in it. And Yahweh does fight for you and you keep silent. I'm alive because of the Father. Amen. I would not be here if it was not for his intercession repeatedly. And I say this, again, as a man acquainted with the taste of a gun barrel. And the only reason I can say those words and not just lose my stuff right now is because of the Father, because of what he's done for me in my life. For he does fight for me, and yet I keep silent. That's a powerful line. Yahweh does fight for you, and you keep silent. I think there's a real strong implication there. The inverse of that is realizing he's fighting for us and not keeping silent. Share your testimony with somebody, even if it's just a little micro share, because it's a muscle, right? And you got to get better at using it. You got to get stronger at using it. Even if it's just, yeah, this thing happened today and I'm super thankful. You know, hey, Tina at work. Oh, my day sucks. You know, Tina, I don't think it does. I don't think it sucks near as bad as you think it does. And here's why. Right? Because Yahweh fights for you and yet we keep silent. We're not to do that. And Yahweh said to Moshe, why do you cry to me? Speak to the children of Israel and let them forward. And you lift up your rod and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it. And let the children of Israel go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. Yo, dude, part the sea. Yes, sir. I think we're all familiar with this conceptually. Probably the northwestern tip of the Sea of Reeds. Geographically, archaeologically speaking, there is an inlet there, a little finger of the sea, and that's probably where they crossed, but still no less amazing. And I am strengthening the heart of the Mitzrites, and they shall follow them. And I am to be esteemed through Pharaoh and over all his army, his chariots, and his horsemen. And the Mitzrites shall know that I am Yahweh, when I am esteemed through Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen. And the messenger of Elohim. What is a messenger of Elohim? You probably have an angel of the Lord there. We've talked about this before in Genesis. You are a messenger of Elohim. You have these words. We're not to keep silent. You serve the Most High, Elohim. Be a messenger of Elohim. My brother recently got a taste of that the other day on a 2.5 hour long phone call. And it's a wonderful thing, isn't it? It's a beautiful thing. There aren't words for it. There aren't words for it when you know unequivocally you're being used to do the will of the Most High, and you're just like clay in 4-dimensional space-time that's somehow being transformed and being made into a vessel to carry water that's not even yours so you can fill the thirst of somebody else. And none of it's you. And you're just the vehicle. And it's a very strange feeling. And there aren't words for it. It's extremely humbling, because if you ever think you're in charge of your life, let that happen to you and realize just how much of a puppet, of a facilitator you are for his will. It's incredible. We all should be messengers of Elohim. A lot of people go looking that way for angels, when it's our job to be looking this way as angels, to speak truth and love to people who need to hear it, to edify and encourage and educate and strengthen people. Sorry. And the messenger of Elohim, who went before the camp of Israel, moved and went behind them. And the column of cloud went from before them and stood behind them, blocking maneuver. So now the Hebrews are going across this land bridge through the sea, and the column that was in front of them is now behind them. In between the Hebrews and the Mitzrites, blocking maneuver. And came between the camp of the Mitzrites and the camp of Israel. And it was the cloud and the darkness, and it gave light by night, and the one did not come near the other all the night. So the Egyptians and the Hebrews did not get near each other all the night because of this blocking maneuver. And Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea, and Yahweh caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea into dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, and the waters were a wall to them on their right and on their left. And the Mitzrites pursued and went after them into the midst of the sea, all the horses of Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen. And it came to be in the morning watch that Yahweh looked down upon the army of Mitzrites through the column of fire and cloud, looked down upon it. I just get this image that he is, he's just walking, and he is this column of fire and cloud, and he's huge, right? He's Yah, and he looks down and is like, pfft. It's a good thing. It's a really good thing. I am not him. Later, Egypt. Pharaoh, you suck. Right? Oh, and the children of Israel amidst the blah blah blah, chariots and horsemen. And it came to be in the morning watch that Yahweh looked down upon the army of the Mitzrites through the column of fire and cloud, and he brought the army of the Mitzrites into confusion, and he took off their chariot wheels, so that they drove them with difficulty. And the Mitzrites said, "Let us flee from the face of Israel, for Yahweh fights for them against the Mitzrites." Then Yahweh said to Moshe, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, and let the waters come back upon the Mitzrites on their chariots and their horsemen." And Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its usual flow at the break of day, with the Mitzrites fleeing into it. Thus Yahweh overthrew the Mitzrites in the midst of the sea. So, I'm sure we're all familiar here, but land bridge down the middle, right? And Moshe reaches out his hand, draws it over the thing, boom, sea closes in on top of the Mitzrites, the Egyptians. And Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea and returned to its usual flow the break of day, with the Mitzrites fleeing into it. Thus Yahweh overthrew the Mitzrites in the midst of the sea, and the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the army of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them, and not even one was left of them. And the children of Israel walked on dry ground in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall to them on their right and their left. Thus Yahweh saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Mitzrites, and Israel saw the Mitzrites dead on the seashore. And Israel saw the great work which Yahweh had done in Mitzrayim, and the people feared Yahweh and believed Yahweh and his servant Moshe. That's the end of 14. That's where we're going to stop, because we went long today because I ran my mouth per usual, and I apologize. All of this is being done by the Most High for Israel. There's a lot of different directions I can go with this. And I again want to encourage you that I am not your pastor. I'm not your rabbi. I'm not leadership. I'm your brother. I don't know everything that's in this book. I know what I know, and I go where the Spirit leads. I'm not your pastor. That being said, I have opinions. And we're going to at least call them opinions or convictions. The children of Israel. Yahweh goes out of his way for the children of Israel to deliver them from the hand of Pharaoh, to build a testimony amongst them, and to provide rules for them to live by so that they will be blessed, so that it will go well for them. There's a lot of talk about the renewed covenant and what do Gentiles need to do versus what do Israelites need to do. Gentiles are grafted in, right? They're the wild branch. Roger that. Wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. I'm pretty sure I'm not speaking from the double helix DNA part of me, that I'm not a Hebrew. I am a Hebrew. But the Gentile part, what should the Gentiles do? Okay? Book of Acts. Okay, circumcise your heart. Okay? Don't fornicate. Don't eat something that's strangled. Don't eat blood. And go to the temple on Shabbat and get the Torah. Go learn what the rules are. Okay, cool. I think a lot of people stop at, you can believe in Yeshua and be saved in his name, and don't eat blood, don't fornicate, don't eat something that's been strangled, all of which are different ways of pagan worship, which is important to understand, all of which are different ways of pagan worship, and then go to the temple on Shabbat and learn the ways, the Torah. There are 50 different Torah portions each year. Every Shabbat, there's a new Torah portion that breaks down, and then you get a 2-week break, right? And there's high feasts in there and the whole nine, so you don't really get a 2-week break. So every week, you got a new teaching from the Tanakh, the Pentateuch, the first 5 books, right? And then it starts over again. And it said that there's 70 different ways to teach each portion, which means that the same person could teach the same Torah portions for 70 years before they touched on all the points, which I think is beautiful. So the Gentile seems to get caught up in this idea that I'm good, right? I hit my benchmarks, I'm good. And salvation-wise, if you're saved, if you're truly saved, you're good. Okay? But the blessings that come from being a child of Israel, I know a lot of really unfulfilled Christians. And I'm not judging here, I'm observing. I know a lot of really unfulfilled Christians. Almost like I don't know what to do next. And it's like their faith has reached this point where it's like this cheap facsimile of what they would like it to be. It's like a cardboard cutout of what they wish they had. And they get the same stories from the same church with the same pastor every week, and it's just not cutting it. That was my life. I stopped going to church because while the people in the church I loved and loved deeply and cherished, I was not being filled up. And it became obvious to me that it was my responsibility to do this, to read this word, not somebody else's. It's my job. My spiritual well-being is my job. The spiritual well-being of my family is my job. The leadership and priesthood of my home is my job. First and foremost, my job. And then Jeremiah 3:15, if a pastor is raised up over me, good, because I need that iron to keep my iron sharp. If a group of brethren develops around me to help us sharpen each other, good. But first and foremost, my responsibility. And the more I read this book, the more obvious it became to me that the Torah refines the soul. It's just right in Psalms, man. That's what it does. It paints the lines on the battlefield so you know where you're at in 4-dimensional space-time. And then we're told repeatedly, if you do these things, it will go well for you. You will be blessed. And so the inheritance of the children of Israel is predicated upon them doing these things and the blessings that come from that. I identify strongly with the Hebrews, much more than the Gentiles. I'm not saying that you need to be one or the other. That's between you and your Maker and the conviction of your heart. Just for me, I couldn't be anything but this. And it gets tricky when you try and explain a conviction. And to my wife's point, when she and I were talking about this recently, she said, don't explain it. I said, yeah, but I get a lot of questions about it. She said, yeah, but to the people who need to get it, you don't need to explain it. To the people that you do need to explain it to, they'll probably never get it. She's a wise woman. We build this testimony. The Father has built this testimony over time. The Hebrews, us, our life, all the things He's done for us. The metaphorical deliverance from slavery for us. Yahweh fights for us, and yet we keep silent. That convicts the hell out of me, even right now, even as I stand here talking to you. Yahweh fights for us, and yet we keep silent. He's brought us out of bondage and slavery. He's redeemed us. He's given us rules to live by, to be blessed. He's provided an intercessor for us, that we don't suffer eternal damnation for our wretched souls, even though we deserve it. And He fights for us daily, and yet we keep silent. That line slays me. So, the onus is on us to not keep silent, to acknowledge that He fights for us, that He has fought for us since the dawn of time. He's gone out of His way to make a way for us over and over and over again. There's a reason there are multiple covenants, is because we keep messing it up. And He keeps reaffirming, I still love you. I still want to be with you. I have made a way for you. I have come to earth to help you fix this, to show you how to do this. Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ. Believe on Him first. And then the rest of this, it's a fruit of the Spirit, and it's a conviction, and it's not logical, but damn is it good. None better. Not for me. This has been a long rambling talk this morning, and I apologize. But it's what I got for today. So, Yahweh fights for us, and yet we keep silent. Don't. Shalom.